Hey, fourth graders, Mr. Crowell back here in the backyard doing lesson 8 with you. How are you doing? I'm doing well, and I'm excited to bring you lesson 8 on a very exciting book that I have near me called The Anatomy of Volcanic Eruption. I know that we've been reading in this. You're saying, Mr. Crowell, you've been talking about it and reading from it, and I'm saying yes. We're going to keep going. So I want you to please turn to page 42. And when we turn to page 42, we will find ourselves on a page that is, we're getting close to the end of the book because I think I saw it at the end of the book, and it looks like page 42 is on Mount St. Helens. So we're going to kind of come to our neck of the woods in terms of volcanoes. And if we look right over here to the other side of the screen, we see the Mount St. Helens erupting there. So please stay with me today. We've got some vocabulary words that we're going to be seeing. Contain is number 1, experiencing number 2, and tremors number 3. So if you see those, hear those, I'll stop, we'll talk, raise your hand, throw up your thumb. You don't have to do any of that, but we're going to stop and talk about each of those vocabulary words here in lesson 8. We're going to be reading pages 42 through 45 today, so a little bit shorter in terms of our page numbers. But anyway, very excited. Stay with me, read with me, track any way that you wish and feel comfortable doing. So we're going to please turn to page 42, Mount St. Helens, Washington State. Yay, that's where we are. USA, May 18th, 1980. Volcanic eruption, VEI 5. Mount St. Helens, snow-capped volcanic dome, was a sleeping giant for at least 124 years before the spring of 1980. That's when rising magma below the volcano's summit could no longer be contained. Boys and girls, I remember this. I was down in Eugene, Oregon, and I was, just kind of hanging out down there with my friends, and I remember the whole thing. So though I was not by Mount St. Helens, I certainly was aware of it. I think I remember when it blew and I heard it, but I don't know. It's like the brain. I get old, I don't remember. But anyway, it's something that I remember. I was around. I was a lot younger. Day of Destruction, May 17th, 1980. More than 10,000 small earthquakes occurred near the volcano since March 16th. The north flank of the mountain has expanded into an enormous bulge. So the bulge is kind of a large, it's kind of a big round kind of part that was coming out. And so it's getting bigger. It's getting bigger. But you know what? Somebody raised their hand. I could tell. I can't see you. I don't know where you are. But I see that we talked about our first vocabulary word, which is contained. Contained. Let's go back to the sentence. That's when rising magma below the volcano summit could no longer be contained. Boys and girls, what's contained? That means is to contain it is to keep something. Just contained. Keep something together. Might be the best way to do it. When you contain something, you hold it. And there goes my board. There you go, boys and girls. See, you are experiencing. See, I have falling boards. I've got rain coming down. This is a fun experience. I'm glad you could enjoy it. So let me move around the camera. There we go. But something contained means you keep it contained, you keep it locked down, you keep it in a box, you keep it. So this magma was being contained in the summit, but it can no longer be contained, and it will erupt anyway. So that is the word contained. May 17th, we talked about that, the enormous bulge. Okay, let's go down to the bottom of the page. Mr. Crowell, there we go. There's the bottom of the page. May 28th, 1980. Oh my gosh, we have the sun. The sun has come upon us. Getting some sun. Rain, sun, clouds. It's a heck of a day out here in the backyard. May 28, 1980, 8:32 a.m. A 5.1 magnitude earthquake causes the volcano summit and bulge in the north flank to slide away. This is the largest landslide in recorded history. And here we see at the very bottom, we see a text feature, Mount St. Helens erupts 1983. It is still an active volcano. It still does. It still is making some shakes and some shapes, some various things. So there you go. So really right in our neck of the woods, in our backyard here in the Pacific Northwest, we have one of the great erupting volcanoes in our modern history here. Let's go to the next page. Going to page 43, please. Turn your pages to 43. Here we see our map. This gives you, again, it's a text feature, boys and girls. It allows us to kind of see where Martinique was and Mount Vesuvius in Italy. Here, Mount St. Helens, that points to just about right where we are. And, of course, that's a little down south from where we are here in Puyallup, Washington, but it's pretty close. Here we go. Let's continue to read. 8:33. We are on page 43. a.m. The landslide tears a hole in the side of the volcano. This creates an enormous crater, 1 mile or 1.6 kilometers wide and 7 miles, 3 kilometers long. The magma and debris that had been trapped inside the volcano explodes from the crater at a speed of 300 miles or 483 kilometers per hour. Comes out. 8:48 a.m. Ash and gas have risen more than 15 miles or 24 kilometers into the atmosphere. Magma, ash, and pumice continue to erupt throughout the day. Let's go down the page. 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. The eruption reaches its peak. Cities that are hundreds of miles away from Mount St. Helens report experiencing total darkness just hours after the blast. I kind of remember that. I remember that kind of got kind of dark. And we also got a real good dusting of ash in on our house and car that we live down in Eugene. Here we go. Text feature, big text box in the bottom, more powerful than an atomic bomb. According to scientists, the blast from the Mount St. Helens eruption was 400 to 500 times greater than the atomic bomb that fell on Hiroshima, Japan, in August of 1945. As a result of Mount St. Helens eruption, 57 people lost their lives. Millions of trees were destroyed, enough to build 300,000 two-bedroom homes. That's a lot of trees. Nearly 200 homes, 27 bridges, and many miles of roads, highways, and railroads were destroyed. It was a pretty big deal. And I remember it. I was in high school at the time. Here we go. Just started high school. Page 44, I believe. Let's check 44. There it is, page 44. Living in the shadow of a volcano. Please turn to page 44. I'll give you a second. There it is, page 44. People around the world lead normal lives in the shadow of volcanoes. There are, however, some things that people near volcanoes have to deal with that people who live in other areas do not. One danger that people living near volcanoes face is earthquakes. Tricia Jones has lived most of her life on Hawaii Island, where there are 3 active volcanoes. Her family lives close to 2 of them. There are a lot of little earthquakes due to the volcano that we live very close to, Tricia explains. We built our house on post and pier foundation because a regular cement slab foundation may crack due to the frequent tremors. Let's go to the board. Tremors. Holy cow, Mr. Crow, I apparently have missed experiencing. So let's go back. Let's see if I can find it on page 43. Go ahead and look on page 43 for experiencing. We'll go to the very top. There we are. Raise your hand if you see experiencing. I'm not doing my job. There it is. Middle. There it is. Under the 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Let's read the sentence. The eruption reaches its peak. Cities that are hundreds of miles away from Mount St. Helens report experiencing total darkness just hours after the blast. What is experiencing? Experiencing is something that is happening. You experience it. It's happening. You live it. So if something is experiencing, something is it's happening. You're experiencing it. And so when the Mount St. Helens blew, you had experiencing total darkness. It was happening. You were living through it. Okay, there we go. Now we can go back to tremors because that is our third ding ding ding. Tremors is our third vocabulary word. So Tricia talked about having a volcano or living next to a volcano in her house, that she cannot have a foundation because of the regular frequent tremors. What is a tremor? Tremor, boys and girls, is one word, is movement. And when you are facing tremors, you are facing the movement of either something that you make, something that a machine makes, or in this case, something that the earth makes. So the earth makes tremors by shaking by earthquakes. Does that sound good? Thumbs up. Nice job. So the house on post and pier can allow for movement without damage to the house. So when you're on the pier and post, you can kind of be a little bit move it. If you are on a foundation, like all of our houses here in Puyallup, if we had tremors from a strong earthquake, you would have some cracks in the tremor in the foundation of your house. So here in the bottom of page 44, we see the houses there in Hawaii. Let's go to page 45, our last page of our lesson 8. Lesson 8. Fog is a problem for people living near volcanoes. Fog is a type of fog made up of sulfur dioxide vapors that are given off by volcanoes. So it's a word, fog, Fog. Fog is the kind of the mist that kind of happens with clouds and moisture. So fog is different. It has to do with sulfur dioxide vapors that are given off by volcanoes. It can cause problems for young children and for people who have asthma, which is for breathing, and other respiratory problems. Acid rain is formed when fog mixes with rain. This causes damage to vehicles, homes, and other structures. So acid is a kind of chemical that's really not good, and it can take the paint off of cars and houses and stuff. It's very yucky stuff. What do people who live near volcanoes do in the event of an eruption? Get in your car and drive away, says Trisha Jones. The lava in Hawaii moves very slowly, so if there ever was an eruption and lava flow is headed your way, you have enough time to gather people and important belongings. You can't stop the lava or block it, so it's the best to stay out of the way, she explains. So very interesting. So you get in the car and you go. Okay, middle of page 45. People who decide to live in the shadow of a volcano must understand that there are risks involved. They must stay alert and keep informed of current events related to the volcano. So they're listening to the radio or listening to the TV, and they're also reading their iPads and other devices that let them know for warnings if something should happen to the volcano that they live by. The very bottom of page 45, there's a fact box down there that says Earth is not the only place that volcanoes are found. The largest known volcano in our solar system out in space is on Mars. It is 375 miles or 600 kilometers wide and 13 miles or 21 kilometers high. So boys and girls, there is the end of our Lesson 8 reading through page 45. Let's go to the board. Of course, please find that you will need your Reader Writer Journal. This is what you'll be doing. We're getting some sun. The sun is good. And please turn to page 279. 279 is in Lesson 8. There we go. And the very top of 279 is writing a sentence. My class, you can do that, but it's a choice. But our schedule is for the write in response to reading. So if you want to use our vocabulary words and create a sentence, you can do that. That's kind of extra credit, a little bit extra. But we want you to be writing on this right here. Directions. Today, many people hike in Mount St. Helens. Do you think this is a good idea? What facts from the author's purpose to inform make you think this way? Use evidence from the text to support your answer. Hey, I would probably ask the people in your family, have you been doing any hiking around Mount St. Helens? I remember hiking around Mount St. Helens, and I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, you write right there based on the information, and again, if you need more paper, you can get another paper. Let's go to page 280. That's our next assignment, 280, next page, and we are going to use the very top, which is the writing assignment, directions, write an informative, exploratory draft about what life is like for people living in the shadow of a volcano. Use pages 44 through 45 of Anatomy of a Volcanic Eruption and additional sources to find facts and quotations. Choose facts and quotations that your reader will find interesting. So find things that your reader, which is teachers like Mr. Crowell, what would we find interesting? Of course, you can use your iPad and you can use any kind of device to look for information for that writing. Boys and girls, thank you very much for checking in with me and following in on pages 42 through 45 in the Anatomy of Volcanic Eruption. This is Lesson 8. I thank you very much. Good luck with it, and have a great day, and we'll see you next time. See ya.